I went to the Goodwill last year for a couple of months.
I'm Jerry
Correct, and then I got,
Nice to meet you.
I started cheating a little bit. Yeah, you really do.
Keith LeBaron is my son. He's involved in politics.
Yes, I met him.
Okay.
All right, folks. Just so I can keep Joe from getting on my case again. I see some new faces here. I want to welcome them. In fact, Glenn, I'm going to put some cards back there on the table. If you don't have my card, or if you only got one, grab some of my cards back here on the table. It's got all my contact information on it. My phone number is 24/7, literally. If I'm asleep, you'll get my voicemail and I'll call you back. Leave me a message. And this is how smart I am. Back of every card tells you exactly where and when to come twice a month in Kay County to come to an OK2A meeting. So it makes it easy. For those of you that are new here, my name's Terry Thompson. I'm the Kay County Coordinator. We have been active here in Kay County for 2 years, and this is our 2 years and second month. Our first meeting was 2 years ago, January. And we're real active here. Kay County, every month draws more people than any of the other chapters in the state. And I appreciate having so many patriots up here in Kay County. We're showing them how it's done, folks. I've got some housekeeping stuff to go through, and then I'll introduce our speaker. We are blessed today to have Ryan Walters. He is the state Secretary of Education, and he's running for the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, which is the state school superintendent, AKA. The one, anybody heard the name Hoffmeister? Okay, that's who he is running to replace. I personally think the biggest problem we've had in the state government these last 7 or 8 years has been her. And I was shocked that she changed her party affiliation. Who would have thought? In fact, my personal feelings are the biggest problem we have in the Republican Party in Oklahoma are ex-Democrats that are now Republicans so they could get elected, and otherwise known as rhinos. First off, we're going to start off, as always, with our prayer. And Pastor Jack will be here shortly, but Glenn has consented to do our prayer for us. So if everyone will stand and bow, and go ahead, Glenn.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we want to come to you this morning, asking your blessings upon our world, knowing that there's a war that has started. We pray that will be resolved peacefully and to your will as soon as possible. And Father, we pray your blessings upon our country, that our liberties, our freedoms will be maintained, that we will stand up for what is right, what you tell us is what is right. May we always be willing to follow your will. Pray, Father, that this organization always seek to honor you and obey you. We pray, Father, that as we meet today, that we'll have a resolve to stand up, be counted, stand up for your will, for our liberties, for justice. Pray that in your Son's name.
Amen. Amen. Ryan, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, sir, absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Okay, I always like to start off with the meeting thanking the people that make this possible. Pastor Jack, who will be here shortly, is the pastor of New Hope Christian Fellowship. In fact, there he is. I'm just talking about you, Pastor. Come on in. Let's give Pastor Jack a hand, folks. We wouldn't have a venue if it wasn't for him. Bless his heart. Over 2 years now, and they've tied up their church on the fourth Saturday of the month. Also, Stephen Phipps, who is the man that runs everything here, the AV guy. Give him a hand. When I announced that I was putting a chapter into Kay County, he sent me a message, say, I think I may have a venue for you. A lot of these coordinators, they spend weeks, sometimes months, finding a venue. This fell right into my lap. The Lord was watching out for us. Also, Glenn Cope is back there on the table. He's got sign-up forms if anybody wants to join OK2A. Plus, he's got information on Ponca City Rifle and Pistol Club. The best deal in the United States on a shooting range. $80 a year. And it's a great range. It's clean. It's kept up nicely. It's run by the members. Also, for those of you that are on Facebook, I just found out about 30 minutes ago I've been hacked. So, oh, you knew? No. Yeah. So as soon as I can figure out how to change my password, if anybody knows how, catch me after the meeting and show me how, please. But don't accept any friend requests from me. Plus, who wants to be my friend anyway? Right? Okay. One sad note. Many of you know Charlie Wilson. He's been a regular attendee. He comes down from Ark City. You've met him, Michael. One of the SCV members yesterday called me. He got a text from somebody. I don't know the guy who sent the text, and he said Charlie died that morning or the morning before. And we've been trying to run him down. His phone goes right to voicemail, and his voicemail is full, and nobody knows any family members or anything. In fact, if they can get a line on him, I'm going to drive up to Ark City to see if we can find out what happened. But his name is Charlie Wilson. He's the camp commander for our Sons of Confederate Veterans chapter here in Ponca City. And he's like me. He's kind of strange, but unlike me, he's a real nice guy. So, also, OK2A about 3 days ago kicked off our brand new cool website. It's OK2A.org. It's the same address, and it's faster, and there is a complete list of all 77 counties in Oklahoma on there. So somebody can go on there and scroll down to their chapter and find out exactly where and when to go to a meeting locally. The chapters that don't have, the counties that do not have a chapter, that's noted as well. Speaking of, if you have any friends in counties that do not have a chapter, well, hello, Bill, Becky, first time for you to be here. Good to see y'all. Thanks for coming. If you have any friends or family in the counties that do not have chapters, please give them my number, give them my card. That's one of my jobs, is to get these empty counties filled in. Kay County, 2 years ago, January, was the fourth chapter for OK2A in the state. We're now right at 60. That's in 2 years and 2 months. That's some phenomenal growth. So anyway, this is my basic plea. Please tell anybody that might be interested, all I do is answer questions and explain what is involved. I do not try and sell anybody on being a coordinator, because I don't need somebody out in the panhandle saying, oh yeah, and they do it for 1 or 2 months and then quit. If that happens, I feel obligated to drive to that location once a month to have a meeting, and I don't really want to do that. So, but please spread the word. Everybody here, I'm sure, is in this area, but if you have any friends or family, and I'm responsible for everything in Oklahoma west of I-35. And please take my card. If you've got any questions, you will never bother me calling me on my phone about anything to do with OK2A, Liberty, anything, okay? Let's see. This Monday at 6:30, I am kicking off our first meeting of our brand new chapter in Garvin County in Pauls Valley. And the 29th of next month, I will be in Laverne, which is Harper County. That's the last county before you hit the Panhandle. And I will be kicking off the new chapter there. So I make this real easy. Anybody that wants to be a coordinator, I will make a commitment to come to their first meeting and be the speaker and kind of run the meeting, because I've been doing it for 2 years, to kind of show them what all is involved. So, and I'm real happy and pleased about that. Now, we had a candidate forum. This wasn't OK2A, but it was involved and informed Tonkawa citizens. And this was the day before the election, Monday the 7th. And I put hello Trenton, thanks for coming, man. Good to see you. I organized this, and when I organized it, I thought, boy, maybe I'll get 10 or 15 people there. We had 50 people show up in Tonkawa. I have yet to talk to anybody in Tonkawa that's been to a meeting in Tonkawa that had 50 people at it. It was a big response, and this group is going to be putting on this kind of thing. In fact, I've had a couple of people ask me about doing a town hall. I don't know about that, but that's something that might happen. The incumbent got the least number of votes, and the guy who is against SEL got the most votes. We've got a runoff between the two top vote getters, but the incumbent was out the first round. Okay, before I get to Ryan, and I'm going to do this real quick, we've got 3 pages of bills that we're monitoring down at the Capitol this year. So I'm going to go through this real quick. If you want any more details, you can flag me down after the meeting, okay? We've got a bill in the House Bill 2978. This provides fines for firing healthcare workers if they refuse the vaccine. HB 3102, Sheriff is declared the chief law enforcement officer in the county. Some of the DAs think they are. They don't enforce law. It's the sheriffs. But if this passes, this will make it official. We've got a bill, House Bill 3144, preventing discrimination against firearm businesses and associations. There are credit cards, PayPal, for instance. You can't buy firearm stuff online and pay for it with PayPal. HB 3148. Melvin, now we can start the meeting, folks. HB 3148 provides various exemptions from vax or mask mandates. HB 3151, updating required immunization lists, needs legislative approval. In other words, the legislature would have to approve that. HB 3156, prevent employer policy from including vaccine mandates. HB 3157, delete the power of municipalities to regulate firearms carry. HB 3158, fair carry. This would allow you to carry your gun at the Oklahoma City State Fair or the Tulsa Fair each year. HB 3274 allows public notices on the web rather than the newspapers. HB 3682, prohibit use of public funds against the Second Amendment. This is primarily aimed at universities. They get public funds, and then they take those funds and advertise against 2A bills and legislation. That'd be like them taking that money and supporting one particular candidate for the Senate, the U.S. Senate, or the governor's mansion. It should be illegal now, but this would make it so. 3 big ones. House Joint Resolution. A joint resolution is a bill that, if it passes both houses, does not go to the governor's desk. It goes on the next ballot. This is what happened with the marijuana thing. So, HJR 1048, only U.S. citizens can vote in Oklahoma. Boy, that's radical. HJR 1054, right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Our state constitution, after infringed, it says, but this body can regulate. Okay? In other words, our state constitution is not in line with the U.S. Constitution. And we've been working on this for several years. This one is really important. Right now, folks, we're one legislature and one governor away from losing all of our Second Amendment rights. HJR 1055, vaccine mandate nullification. Now, Senate bills. SB 843, daylight savings time to become regular year-round time. Yeah, my sister's for that. I am too, but the other side wants to get rid of it completely, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'd rather have daylight at the end of the day than the start of the day, personally. Senate Bill 1000, voter registration requires timely removal of the deceased. We need a bill to get dead people off the voting rolls. That's the kind of mess we're in, folks. SB 1093, age 18 for constitutional carry. Right now it's 21 unless you're in the military. SB 1098, suppressors made in Oklahoma and stay in Oklahoma would be legal. SB 1100, you must be an Oklahoma citizen to vote in elections. There's another radical deal. SB 1114 authorizes certain lawful possession in a gun-free school zone. Folks, I'm old enough to remember we did not ever have any school shootings until they made it illegal to take a gun onto a school property. That's when they started. Because those little Scheißkopfs, and those of you that speak German know what I just called them, they know if they get on that campus with a gun, they're the big man on campus for 5 or 10 minutes while they're killing people. So, okay. SB 1120, Kyle's Law, and this is our hero, Nathan Dahm. This is his bill. This would prevent DAs from doing malicious prosecutions like they did to Kyle Rittenhouse. They put that poor kid there. However, it looks like he's going to have a big payday on it. He's suing LeBron James, and I bet he's going to end up with a couple of thousand people he's suing. So, and this has passed the committee on February 22nd, a 7-2 vote. SB 1122 would allow you to carry a gun on a boat just like you do in your car. There are restrictions on carrying a firearm on a boat. That doesn't make any sense. You can do it in a car. But SB 1128 exempts certain employees from new mandates. SB 1131 constitutional carry cleanup language. There's another one. This is in the Senate allowing carry at the fairs. SB 1148 allowing lawful carry in certain places. 1171 prohibit vax mandates or passports in private schools. 1186 state employment prohibit vax mandates and hiring discrimination. 1199 empower the sheriff to arrest federal agents enforcing firearms ban. That sounds good to me, folks. SB 1200 prohibits the feds from making an arrest without the sheriff's permission. Senate Bill 1226 prohibits illegal anchor babies from getting citizenship in Oklahoma. I've always wondered, those anchor babies, how do they breathe underwater? Anybody else wondered about that?
I don't know, let's try.
I like your attitude. Senate Bill 1228 allows CARES funds from Oklahoma for neighboring states to build a border wall. 1231 empowers the governor to send Oklahoma National Guard to border states. SB 1251, Militia Protection Act, this failed on February 10th, so it's not going anywhere this year. But we'll be back at that well, I guarantee you. SB 1296, provide exemptions to refuse to disclose vax status. SB 1315, sales tax exemption for firearms and ammo. SB 1331, college campus carry. SB 1335, empower the sheriff to arrest feds violating the right to keep and bear arms. SB 1570, modify requirements and procedures for absentee voting. By the way, I just recently was appointed to the Kay County Election Board. And one of my jobs up there is going to be to sit down at a table, and if there's something fishy about an absentee ballot, I can object to it. It's me, a Democrat, and Carol Lemming, who's the voter registrar in Kay County. So if one of us raises an objection, then there's a vote. In other words, Carol Lemming has the authority at this board, but it at least allows me, if something looks fishy on one of these absentee ballots, I can bring it up and challenge it. Okay. SB 1644 prohibits social credit scores. This is what they do in China, folks. You get graded on how well you conform. And that's what's going on up in Canada, them seizing trucks, them seizing bank accounts, and the bank accounts from people that just donated to the truckers. Plus, I read an article 2 days ago, those trucks they're seizing, a lot of these truckers travel with a dog. They're taking those dogs and euthanizing them. In other words, they're murdering the dogs. Now, the big difference between Canada and here is they can't have guns in Canada. That is the big difference, and that's the only thing that keeps these a-holes in Washington from doing the exact same stuff here. Okay, SB 1647, parental employment accounts for educations. That's vouchers. That passed, but the President Pro Tem and one of the other officers in the Senate, they're allowed to step in and vote on any committee votes. The only reason that passed is they stepped in and voted. That's somewhat unusual, but they do have that power. Then there's a Senate bill for allowing vote carry. Senate Bill 1769, prohibit vaccinations as a condition of employment. A lot of these overlap with the House bills, and those end up getting blended usually. Okay, SJR 21, that is addressing the Second Amendment in our state constitution as the House bill is. SJR 27, only U.S. citizens can vote. SJR 40 defines Oklahoma as a sovereign state. SJR 44, make district attorneys subject to impeachment by the legislatures. So, for instance, there's a guy named Prather down in Oklahoma City. Am I pronouncing that right, Darlene? Prather. And he's done this over and over again. And a lot of times what they'll do, somebody uses a gun in self-defense, they file murder charges on them, then you got to hire an attorney, you got to make bail. Either you got the cash or it's going to cost you 10% out of your pocket. Then you got to hire an attorney at $200 or $300 or $400 an hour. The day that you go in for trial, they dismiss the charges. This is done strictly to financially break these people. And this would, the legislature would have an option at that point to impeach that DA. SJR 49, right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay, and there's some, like I just wanted to do a quick rundown. Like I said, that's a lot. As we get further into the session, I'll have more complete reports because we'll have bills that are either passing or failing or whatever. But those are most of the bills that we're backing down at the legislature this year. There's one other one, SB 1442. I should have written it down. There is a bill pending to make teaching of social emotional learning illegal in Oklahoma. Now, we did that last year on critical race theory, and we're still fighting school boards and school systems around the state. They're just ignoring it. That law needs to be revisited and teeth put in it. Like, for instance, if you do something like that and break an ordinance, you lose your teaching certificate forever. That would get their attention. Okay, folks. What? 1442. Thank you. See, he's useful sometimes. Oh, okay. Okay, good. Thanks for looking it up for me. That's what I get for relying on my memory. Okay. Let me see. Okay. We are ready for our guest. That took me about 10 minutes longer than I thought it would, Ryan. You'll have to pardon me. Ryan's going to speak, and then we're going to have Q&A. And also, gentleman back here, first time I've seen you without a tie. It's Michael Morrison. He's from Americans for Prosperity, and they're real active in school choice. So if anybody's got any questions along those lines, he's the guy to ask. Chris, do you want to come? Just a minute. Chris, you want to come up and take a couple minutes, tell them who you are and where you're at?
Just by way of letting you know, since it is legal here in the United States, it looks like I'll be helping cook for the truckers that's gonna be stopping over.
Good for you.
I think they're having like 20-something or a whole bunch of parking lots, and so there's a lot of stuff going on there. So anybody interested in doing that? I'm also one of the county coordinators, so, but I'm here to talk to you about U.S. Law Shield. How many are members of U.S. Law Shield? Okay, most of you. U.S. Law Shield is something that's really good. So when they do that little thing where they try and throw you in jail and all this kind of stuff, well, if you're a member of U.S. Law Shield, it's less likely they're going to do that because you can match them tit for tat. You can have 100% of your legal fees covered. You defend your life, we defend your freedom. Very big deal. Imagine you're at Walmart. Anybody go to Walmart? Okay. Well, here you are, you're coming out of Walmart, and somebody's standing between two parked cars, your car and the next one with a weapon. Well, if you're like me, you got yours on your hip, you pull yours to keep from dying. Who does everybody see with the weapon? You, because you're out in the middle and they're hiding. So all the phone calls come in and suddenly you're the perpetrator. And guess what? You're going to jail. There's problems there. It happens all the time. We know all of our district attorneys all throughout Oklahoma are 100% honest and ethical and above board and would never use your case as a stepping stone. Okay, you see where that's going. Folks, don't get caught in a situation like that. With us, if you sign up and you join U.S. Law Shield, you'll become a member today. You'll get a temporary card until your permanent card comes in. Right here, you've got this number to call Monday through Friday if you have questions as laws change or you go to another state, what your concealed carry does cover, doesn't cover, can you carry a boat, what's the conditions, which that's a very complicated one. Ask me later and I'll tell you all about it. It's nuts. But all those things are going on. Well, you can call that and find out. This other number, the white number in the red box, Monday through Friday, no, it's a 24/7, 365 attorney. Big, because that means you instantly have attorney-client privilege. They can't, and we're the only company that I know of that does that. Huge deal, huge. Now, with U.S. Law Shield, if you sign up at an OK2A meeting, it's less than $11 a month for the basic coverage. If you sign up, you pay for 12 months, you'll actually get 14. And then that would also apply to any of the other add-ons that you add. You're close to another state here. You probably travel to other states. If you want the same coverage, it's only $2.95 extra a month to add that coverage on. And by the way, if you get the 50-state coverage, any of the other add-ons you get will also apply in all 50 states. But you can get your bail bond expert witness, get some money to help bond out of jail, right? That's a big plus. But the biggest thing about that is that expert witness. Let's say you had to shoot somebody 12 or 15 times because they were on some kind of drugs, right? Can that happen? Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you'd want that expert witness to testify that, hey, this is what happened. So it's a very good thing to have. We also have minor children. It's a good add-on if you have minor children. And then we have the Hunter Shield. All of these are good if they apply to you. We don't make you buy all the bells and whistles. We let you purchase what's good for you. We have no caps, no limits. We cover criminal and civil.
Tell them how many cases you've lost.
Well, that's just what I was fixing to say. We also cover appeals in theory. Well, why would it be in theory, Terry?
Because you've never lost a case.
Not in Oklahoma. That's very important. So here's the thing. If they're going to pick on somebody to bully, are they going to pick on the guy that can match them tit for tat, dollar for dollar? And are they going to go find somebody that can't defend themselves because they don't have an attorney? We have attorneys on standby. So who's not a member would like to look at one of these? You can look at it and get with me afterwards. Raise your hand if you'd like to see one of these. If you have a spouse or another adult in your home, you want to sign them up, they don't have to be with you to do so. And if you look, the second person on the same application actually gets a discount. You're still paying for 12 but getting 14. Who else would like to have an application to look at?
I've been a member for 3 years now, and it's a great deal. Thankfully, I've never had to use it in a self-defense situation, but I've had 3 or 4 consultations with one of the attorneys, the top firearms attorney in the state, and he spent a total of over an hour with me on those phone calls. And that, I'm just about breaking even on what I paid them by not having to pay for those legal fees.
And if you sign up today, you'll get one of these. When can I legally shoot? It'll give you a map where concealed carry for Oklahoma is applicable and has some other things, what's a felony, what's not a felony, and where to find it in the statutes. Any questions, see me afterward, and I'll be glad to help you.
Also, Chris is a hero on OK2A in more ways than one. He was just elected to the Pryor City Council. Yeah, so, yeah. I don't know where Pryor is, but he's on the city council. Yeah, I've had people ask me if I'm interested in running for public office. The only office I'm interested in is dictator. And I've got the perfect personality for it. Okay, Ryan, we appreciate your patience. This is Ryan Walters. Yeah, I've already told you his titles and what he's wanting to be, and he's going to tell us about himself and his views.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you very much.
And thank you. Well, first to get started, this is awesome, guys. I'm going to tell you, Terry does a great job. I've been to several OK2As around the state. This is one of the most organized. Him and I have been talking for months about, setting something up, and I've heard so many good things about how regularly attended these meetings are and about this particular group. So you all are doing a great job being here, being engaged, and thank you for what you're doing because, again, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, but I'm a history teacher, and it's really clear that the other rights that we have are there because of your right to bear arms. That's what makes those other rights intact. That's what keeps those other rights. So thank you all for being a voice for that, and we have to have a voice for that. I think Terry was spot on talking about, you see what's happened in other countries, and they don't have this protection. That's why that can happen in other countries. It's not going to happen here. So thank you all, again, for all the work that you're doing. Mr. Osborne over here is giving me grief about being from McAllister. So I am from McAllister. He asked me if I spent a lot of time in the state penitentiary. I said no, but my great-grandfather was the last executioner there who used the electric chair. So his name was Ben Glover, but yeah, he's the one that actually had to retire the electric chair. But yeah, so he was, anyway, so I do have some connections to the state pen, but not because I served time there. So education. We have 1/3 of our third graders that read on grade level. We have 1/4 of our eighth graders that read on grade level. It gets worse. The longer that our kids have been in school, they're not reading on the grade level that they're in. As a teacher, I'm a public school teacher from McAllister. As a parent of 4, I've got a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 7-month-old at home. This is not good enough for our kids. I want better for my kids. I want better for my students. And as I'm going around the state and I hear from parents and I hear from grandparents, they are tired of Oklahoma's education system not doing its job for our kids, for our young people. That's why I'm running for office, because I do not believe for 1 second that we can't have one of the best education systems in the country. And I want to tell you why. I want to tell you why I believe that wholeheartedly. So I told you I'm a teacher. I told you I'm a teacher from McAllister, taught history, taught government. I still teach a history class down there. One of the things that I think is so important that our kids have to understand is the basics in education that we seem to get so far away from. Terry talked about it. I was proud to stand with the legislature and help them last year pass our ban on critical race theory. There's absolutely no reason that our kids should be facing indoctrination in our schools. The focus should be reading, writing, arithmetic. By the way, there's a reason why that's always been the case in our schools. There's a reason why when you all were in school 30 or 40 years ago, look at the standards then compared to now. Look at the expectations of kids several years ago compared to now. We have watered them down continuously over time. It's this participation trophy mentality that our kids can't achieve it. And guys, we all know this. You have kids, you have grandkids. Kids will rise to the level of expectations you put on them. And if we hold expectations right down here, guess what? Our kids are going to meet those expectations. We've got a leader now in the State Department. Terry already mentioned her. I know, I was just shocked to find out that she was going to run as a Democrat. I'm saying that facetiously because she has acted like a liberal for years now. Oklahoma is one of the most conservative states in the country, and our Department of Education has been being run by a Democrat. And so now we're looking at issues like critical race theory in our schools, and I want to take a step back on that. How did critical race theory start coming to Oklahoma? The federal government said they would start giving money away to schools who teach that curriculum. That's why the legislature and the governor moved so quickly to identify that and say, not in the state of Oklahoma, we're not going to do that. But I just want you to see, by the way, what happens. Oklahoma, we were one of the first states in the country to ban critical race theory. Then Iowa, then Alabama, then Arkansas, then Florida. And guess what happens? The Biden administration rolls it back. They quit tying the federal funds to critical race theory because the state stood up and said, let me tell you something, not in our state, we're not going to do that. And they pushed back on the feds, and the feds turned away from it. Now, by the way, they're not giving up on it. Okay, they're just calling it other things. They're trying to put it in curriculum in different ways, and they don't call it critical race theory. They call it all this other stuff to try to get it into your schools. But again, that's a blueprint for getting the feds out of the state. And I'm going to tell you all, the federal government is obsessed with getting involved in states' education. Our 10th Amendment gives us the reserved powers. Everything that's not mentioned in that Constitution, the powers not giving over to the federal government are reserved to the states and the people respectfully. That is a direct quote from the 10th Amendment. I know you all in this room know that. So why in the world do we let the feds dictate what's being taught in our classrooms? Not going to stand for it. Oklahomans will determine what our education system looks like. The Biden administration also sued us. They sued the governor's office because guess what? We made clear, if you want to put a mask on your kid, that's fine. But no one's going to tell you that your kid has to wear a mask at their school. You as a parent, you as grandparents, you know your kids and care about your kids better than anybody else does. Let me tell you, there's nobody who loves my 4 kids more than me and my wife. And for a government official to tell me if my daughter's going to wear a mask at her school is ridiculous. God gave your kids to you, to a mom and a dad, not to the government. So we're not going to let the government dictate to us what your kids are going to learn in school and what your kids are going to have to be wearing in school. That is up to us as Oklahomans, not up to the federal government. And we have to continue to stand up and push back on those things. One of the other things that I'm proud of, just to show you too, how do we do that? How do we make sure the federal government is out of our schools? That's right.
Folks, don't interrupt when they're speaking, and we'll have a chance to make your comments or questions later.
He was going to get. Yeah, okay.
No, it's not question time. You know the deal.
I told you he was giving me grief right when I walked in the door. So he's been all
Friends, when I saw him sit down next to you, I know Elvin.
I was proud to stand with the governor and launch the first ever audit of the State Department of Education. Now, guys, can you believe that we've never audited the State Department of Education? Over $4 billion taxpayer dollars flow through that department. We've never audited it. By the way, when we call for an audit and announce it, the state superintendent puts out a press release. She calls me out by name in her press release and says this is an attack on public education. An audit to ensure that your taxpayer dollars are getting to the classrooms, are getting to our teachers. She calls it an audit. She calls it an attack on public education. Isn't that incredible? But of course, that is the way a Democrat might view financial transparency, right? And I'm going to tell you, I am dead set on ensuring that your hard-earned taxpayer dollars are getting to the classroom. As a steward of taxpayer dollars, I believe it's essential that we show you all where your money's being spent, number one. But also, these are education dollars. They're meant for our kids. They're meant to go to our teachers in the classrooms, not to government bureaucrats, not to a bureaucracy that continues to grow. And as Oklahomans, we have that expectation. But you know, that's the difference between the way conservatives view education and the way Democrats view education. Conservatives believe that mom and dad need to know what's going on in their schools. We'll believe there should be transparency. We are excited when parents attend school board meetings. But guess how the Biden administration addressed that? They labeled parents that attend these meetings terrorists. They literally set up a hotline in the Department of Homeland Security for people to call and turn in parents that show up at board meetings. You guys want to guess in the state of Oklahoma how many threats we've had at board meetings? Zero. But you know what we do have? Mom and dad that show up and want answers. And you know what? Sometimes they're a little fired up. But let me tell you something. When it's dealing with my kid, I can get a little fired up too. Because guess what? That's my child. I want to know what's going on in our schools. I want to know what my child's being taught. And for me, as a teacher, you want to know what my reaction was? Every time a parent came to me with questions, every time a parent asked me about what was being taught, I thanked them. Thank you for being so involved in your kids' education. I will show you everything we teach. I always gave it to every parent. Hey, I want you to know what we're teaching, because guess what? If they go home to you and we're talking about, World War II, and you know what we're teaching and you know what we're doing, and you can talk about it with that student, oh my goodness, that child is so much more likely to be successful and be engaged in class and understand it. Good teachers want to work with parents, but the left, they want parents boxed out. They don't want parents to see what's going on in the schools. They don't want you paying attention. The family unit is the most basic aspect of society. We should be inviting parents to be attending these board meetings. We should be encouraged that parents want to know what's going on in schools. And again, Terry said this also. You hit on so many good education points, Terry. What is taught in schools is incredibly important. It drives me crazy when I hear people act like it's not a big deal. What are you talking about? That's what our kids are learning in schools. We should all be able to see the curriculum. We should all be able to see what's being taught in our schools. And you shouldn't be made to feel bad about that or anything else. That is our right as parents and as taxpayers to know what's being taught in our schools. I want to address another point. I'm going to actually do this as a question. Do you think our kids know history?
No.
Okay, I'm a history teacher. And you know what? A few years ago, I don't even know the guy's name who does it now. But you remember Jay Leno when he would do the Tonight Show? And he would do the jaywalker thing where he'd go around and ask people.
Yeah.
So there's one that always stood out to me, right? He goes and asks this college kid, can you name a Supreme Court justice? And the kid says, Judge Judy. And it's funny, but it's sad, isn't it? It's sad. Didn't even know a Supreme Court justice. Here he is in college, doesn't even know a single one of them. But Gallup did a poll a few years ago that said only 1/3 of Americans could name all 3 branches of government. Just name them. Not even explain what those branches of government do. If our kids don't know our history, if our kids don't know why America is the greatest country in the history of the world, because we had founders who believed that God gave you these rights. Not government, God. And no government should take them from you. And by the way, if they take them from you, there's consequences for that. Jefferson laid it out very clearly. That they laid out the fact that we need to be a moral people, a Christian people, that believe in self-regulation. We don't need the government. We as people need to maximize our liberties. And as long as we're good people, that's the way this is going to work. And that's the way society would function. But you know what? If you're a young person and you don't know our history, communism sounds like a great idea. It drives me crazy to listen to some of our young people think it's a new idea. Isn't that crazy? They pitch it as we should do something new. We should try this socialism model. Well, if you know history, it's been tried. It's in the dustbin of history. We have seen what it does. We've seen that it creates dictatorships. We've seen that it takes away the rights of individuals. We know what path that leads us to. But if our young people don't know our history, absent of any indoctrination, that's why we got to push the indoctrination out. We need our kids to know all of our history, all the good moments, and all the times we fell short, because that's what you learn from. But you know what? If our kids don't know it, what's the future of the country going to look like? What's the future of the state? But broader speaking, what's the future of the country going to look like? We have to make sure history is taught in our schools. We have to make sure our young people understand where their rights come from. We have to make sure that they understand that's what makes this country great. That knowledge of history, of math, of reading, is what empowers our young people. And I want to say one more thing, and I would love to open it up for, if you're good, if I can open up for questions for, okay. So many times we push a one-size-fits-all model on our kids, and it doesn't work. And I want to give you an example of that. Okay. So I'm a teacher. I was a coach too. So I was always Coach Walters. That's what they'd call me, right? So I had this young man one year. He came up to me. He said, hey, Coach Walters, I just want to come up to you and apologize to you. I'm not going to go to college. I said, okay, well, what are you going to do? He said, well, I love to weld with my dad and my grandfather. So I went online. I found this business that would pay for me to go through all this welding training. They would hire me. Here's the starting salary. It's great. I would get to travel around the country. And that's what I want to do. I love welding. I love working with my hands. And I said, Parker, that's fantastic. You thought about what you're good at. You thought about what your talents are, what you're interested in. You sought out a career path. You thought about where that would take you in life, and you pursued it. And guys, let me tell you, he was a little wrong, though. He's not just traveling around the country now. He's traveling around the world. He's an underwater welder now for an oil company. He still sends me selfies from all these different places in the world that he's going to. 0 college debt. Just a fantastic story, right? Just a great example of success from one of my former students. But let me ask you a question. Why did he feel the need to apologize to me? Because so many times we've told kids, college, college, college. Just go to college. We don't even talk about what you do in college. We don't even talk about what degrees they get in college. That's why we've got so many young people that they're 6 figures in debt. They've got a degree that doesn't mean much. And they're out looking for a job, and guess what? There's no job. There's no job for the degree they got. And I feel so bad for those young people because you know what they tell me? We did what the adults told us to do. We thought this was what we were supposed to do. We have to make sure that our kids know from an early age there's many pathways for you. Most Oklahomans don't go to college. I'm glad that Oklahomans do, and there is a great path for that. But not everybody needs to go to college. There's plenty of jobs that are available, and great jobs, great high-paying jobs, great jobs that would give fulfillment to young people that don't want to go that pathway. But you know what? We pushed college on every kid. Every kid's different. Every kid's unique. My 7-year-old right now, I can guarantee you she's reading a book. She's reading a book at house before she takes her nap. She loves to read. My 4-year-old informed me a few weeks ago that she hates books. I told her that is unacceptable. You are not going to hate books. We will figure this out together. But my 7-year-old, she struggles with math. She already does. We're working with her and her teacher to try to help her. My 4-year-old literally takes her sister's math facts cards and likes to do math. They're different. We all know that, right? You have kids, grandkids are all different. They're all unique. We don't need to push a one-size-fits-all model on our kids. We need to be talking about the different pathways earlier in their academic experience so that they can make those decisions. That's why I'm a supporter of school choice. If you want to go to school and you want to be a welder, you want to go to the career tech, we still have shop classes in Southeast Oklahoma. And guess what? Some of my students love them. That's why they come to school. And guess what? There's so many jobs available to them. And that's why I support, where do you want to send your kids to school? That should be up to you as a parent. If you want to send them to that public school or a charter school or a private school or homeschool, give all those options to parents because, again, there's no one who knows better for their kid than their mom and their dad. It's an elitist view to believe the government knows better for your kids than you do. And I reject that. And I believe as a state, and I'll bring it to an end here, and I want to take your questions and hear what you guys are thinking on education. We can lead on education. I absolutely believe we can because we have communities like this all over the state of people with good conservative values who want success for their kids. They want their kids to be of high character. They want their kids to be hard workers. They want their kids to be inspired to go get the job that they want. Oklahoma, we have this tight-knit conservative values communities. If we set expectations high, if we support our teachers, if we make sure that all this nonsense is out of our schools and we're sticking to the basics of what kids need to know, we can absolutely be a leader in education. And guys, I think we should be unapologetically out there saying we should be doing better for our kids. And I told you that I was, Terry did ask me to say one thing. So I am the Secretary of Education, which means I'm an advisor to the governor. I have very little power over the school systems right now because that's all in the constitutionally elected office. So that's kind of the difference between these two roles. So I'm an advisor to the governor. I serve on the cabinet. But that office, the Constitution puts the power of the public instruction into that office. So that's over the schools and it's over that department that we just audited. I told you that I'm a teacher. But the most important title I have is dad. Because I truly believe that parents know best for their kids, and we have to keep the federal government out of our schools, and we've got to keep the power in the hands of our parents. if we're going to continue to be successful in education. So, with that being said, I'll take some questions. Or oh, you're going to hit me with the first
I
one?
should cover this with you. We've got some new faces here. The way I do my question time, the old timers know this. You raise your hand, I call on one at a time.
Sure.
If you're able, please stand and speak up so everyone can hear. I do this so everyone that's here that has a question gets the time and the opportunity to ask it. When you stand up, get to your question. We don't need a 10-minute speech on why you're asking that question. I bet you've heard that several times. So there's no impromptu speeches. This is a question time, and I hope everyone will understand that this way it's organized and everybody gets a chance. If you have a follow-up question, I will come back to you, okay? But each time I call on somebody, you get one question, and I'll go to the next person. Unless there's not a next person, then I'll let you do your follow-ups, okay? Anybody got any questions? Okay, well, actually, Marvin, I'm not surprised that his hand up first. Melvin, I'm sorry. And John, you're next. Yeah, stand if you can.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Melvin.
I agree with you about the history, our school of education. See, Dave Barton,
Yes, sir.
he made a statement back in the 90s where they done a research in Dallas, Fort Worth, seniors, 1 month from graduation, couldn't name the border on the south.
It's your question, Melvin.
That's the question. When do we start getting these?
Yep. By the way, great point. David Barton, if you don't know David Barton, I highly encourage you to read up on David Barton. He has a book, Original Intent, which really lays out the beliefs of our founders, and we're using primary sources. I just met with him when he was in Tulsa a few weeks ago. He was he's about to be in Oklahoma City, I think. But yes. Yeah, he's a historian that really tries to lay it out so that, hey, it's really easy to thumb through, but he lays out, this is what our founders believed, and here's all the quotes and resources there. But that's the thing we have to get back to in school. I mean, again, it's about the foundation. Like, for me, how are you going to understand the country's history if you don't understand the founding? If you don't understand the founding and the principles of which the founding is set up on, nothing else makes sense. I mean, it's just this... History can't make sense if you don't understand it from the beginning. And so that's part of, we have to emphasize history and the way the government actually works. And because this is the thing, again, that the left loves to use this as, hey, if you don't understand it, they'll do these games all the time of what the government should and shouldn't do. It's amazing how many times we don't. The 10th Amendment. I mean, just plain and simply, how many young people even understand the 10th Amendment? They want the government to do this and do that instead of going, hey, it says right here what the government can and can't do. There's no use in even going down the path of making them do A, B, and C, or inventing rights or all this other kind of stuff. So absolutely, we've got to do that earlier. We've got to get the basics down of government and our history. Yes, sir.
John?
Yeah, as a teacher, have you been approached to implement SEL in your classroom? And if so, how did they approach you?
So I have not. That has not been a conversation with me. One of the things I am going around and doing right now is I'm collecting from teachers, from parents, when they see examples of that, so that we can start looking into it. As Terry pointed out earlier last year with the critical race theory, that's how that started. We said, hey, send it to us. What are they doing in the classes? And I'm going to tell you something too. Good teachers, we got a lot of that stuff last year from good teachers who said, hey, they're telling me they want me to teach this. I don't want to teach that. That's not history. So we had good teachers that were reaching out to us too, going, hey, our administrators are telling us that's not what I came here to do. And so right now, that's what I'm going around to do is get all that. But I have never been approached directly, but people kind of knew where I was on things. I was not in the union. I made very clear I didn't want to be in the union. And so I think they pretty well knew where I was, so they probably more avoided me with stuff like that. But good question, though. Great question.
Like supporting the QA and stuff, how would you feel about with all those shootings, teachers being armed and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Terry pointed out really well. I mean, the reality is you see gunmen, where do they go? They go to places they know no one's got a gun. The best defense of a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And it's scary when you think about it, that how unprotected our kids are. And so the reality is we should always allow for that. the good guys to have weapons in a school, because I'm telling you, it's a whole new calculus, as Terry pointed out. If you know I get to run in the school and I've got basically a free-for-all till the police get here, it's a different calculus than I might walk in that door and run into a teacher or principal right the second I walk in who's got a gun, who's trained to use it. He's right there. Whole different calculus for these people. The schools, the shooters love to go to places they know people aren't carrying. And it's so scary to think that one of those places are places with our kids. So we absolutely should have that. Agree, 100%.
These rural schools, especially Sheriff Burton in Osage County told me several months ago, he's got rural schools there. It'd take him an hour and a half
Exactly.
to get a deputy. Somebody walk in there with a shotgun or an AR-15, they're going to kill everybody.
That's right.
And they'll be an hour down the road before the deputy even gets there and sees, look at the dead bodies. So,
That's right.
yes, Chris.
Are you interested in going to other OK2A meetings?
Absolutely. Sign me up. Yes, sir.
See me out.
Absolutely.
And you're next.
I'm looking for your answer on this, and I already have my thoughts.
Yeah.
If it only takes about 50 hours to educate the average child in reading, writing, arithmetic, why is the government authority ain't giving them $15,000?
Yeah.
If it only takes 50 hours.
So I think this is a great question that goes deep. We have locked school. I'm sorry, I'm walking out. I'm a teacher. I'm used to walking around, but hey, we have locked our schools down so much into time. Okay, let me kind of give you another example. I never understood it. Guy, we're kind of getting in the weeds here, but I love the question. So why is it, if I struggle with math, okay, let's just use these gentlemen here. He struggles in math, but he's great in English. He struggles in English, but he's great in math. What do we do? You're going to be in this class for 45 minutes. You're going to be in this class for 45 minutes. That's it. If you're struggling with it, why wouldn't we set it up where you're working on that subject for a longer period of time? And if you're doing well at it, why don't we accelerate you through? There's some schools doing this. But I think to your point, sir, what we have so many times is we just get locked in doing things the same way we've always done them, rather than saying, and guys, this is the most important thing. What is best for our kids? What's best for each kid as an individual? Not what's best for the holistic view no. We should treat our kids like our founders believed all of us should be treated, as individuals with individual rights, with unique talents from God, which means that if you're doing a great job at something, allow them to move on, allow them to move up, but give them these options and pathways. And like I said earlier, it drives me crazy how many times we tell kids they can't. I'm sorry, I want to tell a story. If I could, I want to tell a story to illustrate this. I had a young lady one year. She shows up to school. We had this rule. I taught a lot of the advanced classes in our school. We had a rule that said you had to be there from day one to take these advanced classes, right? Because if you showed up late, if you were 4 weeks late or something, you'd be so far behind it would be tough to catch up. So that was a rule. This young lady, her name was Chloe, she signs up about 4 weeks late. I said, well, Chloe, you're supposed to be here the first day, so you're not supposed to be able to take the class. She said, well, I'm in foster care, and I just got moved over here. I didn't know about your class. I heard it's the toughest class in school, and I want to take it. I really want to do it. So I talk to her. I tell her it's going to be really hard. You're going to get caught up. You're going to have to come in before school, after school, do tutoring, and get caught up. But she said, I want to do it. I want to try it. I want the challenge. I want to do it. Because I have to go to 3 different meetings with leadership in my school to convince them to allow her to do it. They wanted to enforce this rule on her, because again, that's the rule. We apply it to everyone, right? So guess what? She takes the class. Luckily, I finally get her in the class. She struggles. It takes her a while to get above a C, right? She ends the class with an A, and I get an email from her a couple years ago. She's been accepted to OU on a full ride to go to the University of Oklahoma. But you know what? What if we'd have told her, you know what, we have this one rule, it applies to everybody, we don't take into account your individual circumstances, so sorry, you can't take this class. She wrote me in that email and said, hey, that really tough class and me being able to do it, it really inspired me to keep going. But if we don't allow individualization and we don't allow to look at every kid as an individual, if we just do this whole, we treat everybody the same no matter what, I think we get in issues like that where we've got you in classes for hours and hours and hours after you've mastered it. Move on. If you've mastered it, let's allow them to learn other things. That's another reason why students can be so apathetic sometimes, because they're getting the same thing redone over and over again rather than allowing them to advance if they've excelled. So I love that question. I think it's a great point.
That's a touching story. Just turned her whole life around,
Yep.
didn't it?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Somebody back here had their hand up. No? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I got this one. What is it ties? What's it you on? Maybe why should it be on talking about the Constitution and liberties and the difference between you and the other candidates?
Yes. Okay. Great question. We've neglected the teaching of history and the Constitution for years in this state. There are so many great resources out there. You mentioned David Barton. Hillsdale College puts out all of this stuff as well. Great lessons that we could literally use at the Department of Education. So here's the other thing, and it drives me crazy. There's 300 employees that work there, and all the time. So ask your teachers if they feel like they're getting good trainings. They tell you all the time, we don't. Why wouldn't we give a training through the State Department and let every teacher have every resource available to teach the Constitution and push it earlier in school so that kids in 5th and 8th grade know the Constitution? So when they get in high school, you could do deep dives into Supreme Court cases and what the amendments mean in application. We could do that. If we had a conservative as the state superintendent, we could do that really easily. I'm telling you, I could do that very easily. So I believe we should be doing that. I believe we need to take a deep dive. By the way, I told you that audit of the State Department. One of the things that we're going to see, and by the way, the first part of the audit will come out in the middle of March. It'll come out in 3 parts. And we want to see where every dollar goes. But here's the other thing that I think you guys will find interesting. We said for every federal dollar we take, we want to see what strings are attached to those dollars. Because guess what? When the feds give you money, there's always strings attached. So that will be in the audit. It will show when all these federal dollars that they've gotten, what are they agreeing to? What are we telling the government we'll do? And I think that needs to be a conversation too. And that's something that I want to look at and say, what are we agreeing to and why are we taking federal money in the first place for all this stuff? Because there's always some other idea. But instead of we're going to see what all the 300 employees are doing there and where money is being spent. And I want to do a deep dive and make sure that every teacher has the resources available to teach the Constitution, to teach our history, and have that training. So that's one thing I could do from day one.
Good question.
Great question.
Yeah, Ron?
Well, this might not really a question. A few years ago, I was in Plymouth, Mass.
Mm-hmm.
I'm standing there on Plymouth Rock. And there's a young lady, 25-ish, and she asked a question, and I quote, "What is the big deal with this rock?" I say no more.
So, and again, I'll tell one other quick story. I was at a conference once with what's supposed to be some of the best U.S. history teachers from around the state. Okay, I'll get behind the microphone. So, it's supposed to be some of the best history teachers from around the state. We go to this conference. They have one of the things they do at this conference is they give you different ideas for different activities that you can teach. One of them was they had the Declaration of Independence, some lines from it, and they said, hey, give an example of someone during that time period who would have supported it, someone from that time period who would have rejected it, who wouldn't have agreed with it. So it's a good activity to do with kids to think about what people thought back then. I'm at this conference. We have a teacher stand up and say, I would never give this activity to my kids because I would never ask them to find something positive in that document.
What?
Because it was written by a slave owner. So, and I'm sitting there going, what in the what? And then several people speak up and say they agree with her. And I stood up and I said, if you don't understand why the Declaration of Independence, which tells us that our rights come from God, forever changed the course of history and created this country to be uniquely set up to protect those rights. If you don't see anything positive from that document, I don't know why you would be in a classroom teaching our kids history.
Amen.
We have some great teachers in our state, but we also have to make sure that our kids are getting that history education when they go through our schools. Yes, sir.
We're a divided country. And I'd say probably we're divided in here. Here's the reason why. You've read David Burton's book. He said that the beginning of the fall of the United States 62, 63, maybe different prayer, the Bible. When we take God out of the picture, we're no longer a nation. And probably people sitting in here think, well, we don't need religion in our public schools.
I bet there aren't many.
I believe that's the downfall of America. We're taking God out of the picture.
Yep.
Terry Wagner, you're up.
Is Oklahoma a member of the National School Board Association? And if they are, whose role heavy to roll to get us out?
Thank you for this question. Oklahoma has a school board association. It's a private organization. It's not a government organization. It's a private organization. And they are still in the National School Board Association. They refuse to step out of it, even though that was the group, by the way, just to give some context here, the National School Board Association are the ones that wrote a letter to the Secretary of Education for Joe Biden and said they wanted parents investigated for showing up at these school board meetings. Then we had about 20 of them, 20-something of the states pull out of that organization and say, hey, we're not going to be a part of this anymore if you guys are writing letters like this. But our group, and again, it's a private group, so it's nothing that I have any say over, anything like that, but we still have our organization that is still part of the National School Board Association. And that's a decision, and I've talked to some of those board members and gone, what are y'all doing? I don't understand. We're the most conservative, guys, we're the most conservative state in the country. That's what just blows my mind. Like, this isn't a hard call. This is really easy. We don't support labeling parents domestic terrorists, period. That's not a hard position to take. But there's some reason that they won't take that position, and I wish I knew. But we're still in it. Yeah, our state chapter is still in it. Yes, sir.
Our membership dues that organization paid for out of state funds?
Okay, great question. He asked, if you didn't hear, is the membership fees paid for state funds? No, but the state requires all school board members to attend a training. And guess who's happened to be listed in that statute as the group that does the training that you have to pay for? Our school board association. So right now there's a couple of bills. I don't know if you mentioned that bill, but there is a bill, I believe it's Senator Dahm again. It's either Senator, I think, Michael, you might correct me if I'm wrong, the school board not having to go through the school board association for training. Do you remember who, or is that a?
I believe that is Tom Bill.
Okay.
I'll look at it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but there. So it's not technically state money, but we require them to be trained, and the school board association is the main group that does the training. So that's how they get their fees and dues. Great question. Oh yeah.
When you get elected, after providing these resource materials, what's number 2 on your agenda?
So one of the things I want to do immediately is I want to set up a parent hotline so that any parent in the state, if they feel that their school is doing something inappropriate or not meeting their needs or not answering questions, or they have a concern about their child is not being met, I want a hotline where you can get directly to the department. And if that problem isn't solved in 48 hours, I want it to come to my desk. We have to put parents in the middle of the driver's seat of their kids' education. And right now, I hear from parents, guys, I get to go all over the state. I absolutely love traveling the state, getting to talk to people. There are so many frustrated parents that don't know what to do, that don't know where to go. And you guys heard me talk about Oklahoma being top 10 and leading the country in education. I'm not saying that because it's just for the sake of the ranking. What I'm saying that is because of the impact on our kids. If we have the best education system in the country, that means that all of our sons and daughters will have a better opportunity at success than any other kids in the nation. And that is what our goal should be, is to give our students the potential for success. And it breaks my heart to go around the state and hear people that feel like there's nothing they can do. They don't know the resources available to them. They're not getting answers from their schools, from their school boards. And I'm going to be really blunt with you. I think we have a fundamental breakdown in the state with our schools, and here's what it is. Our schools are meant to represent our communities. That's the way this was supposed to work. Your school was going to represent your communities. Your communities would have people who run for school board, who represent the community. The school board members run the school. They hire and fire the superintendent. They hire and fire all personnel. They look over curriculum, all of that. And then you have a superintendent that carries out the will of the board. We have flipped that. For some reason, we have so many school boards that think they work for the superintendent.
Amen.
I wish I had $1 for every time I've heard this. And guys, I've met with school boards. I'm going to give you an example. Tulsa Public Schools was closed for 350 days during COVID. 350 days. And again, most rural schools, I go and tell this to rural communities and they go, what? How is that? We were open the whole time. Our rural schools did a great job of staying. Tulsa Public Schools closed for 350 days. So I'm talking to the superintendent. I'm getting nowhere with her. So I come over to meet with their school board and I'm talking to them and they just tell me, well, we're just going to do what she says. And I said, y'all, I drove over here this morning to talk to you because you are the boss. You represent the community. So why are you telling me you just take orders from her? But guys, we get that all the time. And I'm going to tell you, there's a great bill this year that I'm pushing for, which will move the school board elections to the general and primary cycles. Because right now they do them in this weird time and people don't get out to vote. And you know who does get out to vote? All the teachers union. The teachers unions get everybody out, and then the rest of us are going to work and going about our day and go, oh, there's an election today? We move it to the primary and general cycles. You're going to get candidates that are more representative of your community, and you're going to know a lot more about those candidates. And we can get back to our schools representing the values of our communities. And can I give you one quick example of how out of whack it is right now? Hey, it was an easy vote at the legislature to ban mask mandates in schools. It was easy. It was over 80% of the legislature voted on that. And then what did you see from school boards? Some school boards across the state were trying to do their own type of mandate. They were trying to go around the law. Oklahomans spoke loud and clear through their representatives. They did not want mask mandates on their kids. And yet we had rogue school boards trying to do it anyway. That just shows you how out of step some of our school boards are with their communities. So I would set that up, sir, and I would try to make sure that we're getting much more power directly to parents.
My coordinator's wondering when your election will be.
So I'm on the same cycle as the governor, the AG, so June 28th will be the first, the primary, and so, yep, it'll be on the same with the U.S. Senate and the governor and everybody else.
That will be between the Republicans that are running, and then the Republican that wins and the Democrat that wins in November will run against each other.
Yep.
So he's got 2 elections to get through here.
Yes, sir.
To get into the position.
Yes, sir.
You got another?
Talking about the unions seems like they got too much power. When the Oklahomans got our own public school system, these unions telling the teachers to boycott schools or whatever, I think we ought to have a clause in a contract or something that they don't teach, they don't get paid. I don't think the union ought to come in and tell the teachers not to teach.
Public employees shouldn't be in unions.
So I want to give an update on that. We're pushing a bill this year that would change the way union dues are taken. Right now what happens is your first year, and this happened to me, your first year as a teacher, you come in and you're signing all the employment paperwork, and they always have you opting into stuff. The union comes and they say, listen, you got to sign up to be in the union. Because if you don't sign up to be in this, and they call it, they make it sound like, well, it's just an association to give you liability insurance. Because you know what, you might get sued and you'll be thrown out of town, so you've got to be in this association to get liability insurance. And guys, a teacher will sign up for that, and they don't even know they're in the union. Because they've signed up for so much stuff. I know that sounds crazy, because I get this all the time. And right now, you automatically are re-entered into the union every year. You have to go through a process to get out of it. Well, we're pushing a bill this year that would say every year you have to opt into it. So every year they got to come back to you. And guys, after you've been teaching a little bit, you start figuring out this union is, guys, this critical race theory and all that stuff and the masking, the unions are the ones that push that stuff. So as teachers get more involved, they go, hold on a second. I don't want to be part of the group that's doing all that nonsense. And now that union will come back to them and say, hey, do you want to re-up your union dues? And they're going to say no. So we're pushing that bill. I think it'll really do a lot to make sure that people that are joining it know what they're getting into. They got to opt in every year.
Darlene?
Is there anyone opposed to this position?
Yes. There are 2 other folks in the Republican primary right now. Yeah, you want me to tell you who they are? Okay.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah, I'm being nice. One of them, her name's April Grace. She is the superintendent from Shawnee Public Schools. She was the head of the Administrators Association. And then the other one is, his name is John Cox. He is a superintendent from Peggs, Oklahoma. So right now it's us three, and there's no Democrat yet. So I don't know what they're waiting on, but they'll have somebody.
I just haven't seen anywhere.
Yes, ma'am. That's good. I'm glad you don't know. I'm glad you don't know who else is running.
Back there, yes.
This is related to the book, Where Red Person Girls.
Yeah.
Like if Billy Coleman was did what he did in the story, and that's set in Oklahoma, by the way, he would be considered a criminal, his parents would be considered a criminal. But what about like having some kind of apprenticeship program similar to Benjamin Franklin, where it's a 7-year program in the teenage years, so by the time they're 20, they already have you go out there and be really skilled.
I absolutely love it. One of the things that we need to be doing is allowing kids. I talked about earlier in their academic career, talking about what their skills and talents are. When you find it out, we can have apprenticeships, and we're working on this right now. And I could do this, one state superintendent. Hey, if you want to go be an apprentice to someone, hey, you will find out. Think about how much you learned your first year on a job. What if we started allowing some of our extracurricular credits and our other credits to be given to go and do an apprenticeship? Think about all the things our kids, when I talk to businesses around the state, they go, hey, we want good hard workers. We want people who know how to work with other folks. We want people who can learn on the job. If we can help get young people into these apprenticeships earlier, and hey, if they don't like it, then they don't have to do it. But it's much better to find out you don't like something when you're doing it as an apprentice at 17 than after you've got a degree and $100,000 in debt. So I agree 100%, sir, that's when I talk about having choice in education. I want our kid to go to a school and be told, hey, you want to take a college class? Great. Do you want to take a welding class? Great. Do you want to do an apprenticeship or an internship? Great. Do you want to do a shop class? Great. Give them these options and let the teachers explore that with them. I'm telling you, as a teacher, it is some of my most memorable moments are sitting down with a kid going, hey, you are really great at this. You're really great at this. Let's talk about what doors that opens for you. Let's talk about what kind of job those skills would be. That is such an awesome moment with a young person to talk through that with them. Our teachers want to do that. We should absolutely be exploring ideas like that. I think it's fantastic.
Jim, you're up.
Yes, sir.
The federal constitution is important. Is there any move in the schools to teach the Oklahoma Constitution?
Great question. Yes, we have Oklahoma history classes. We were talking about this here before we got started. We have Oklahoma history. It is a required subject. Again, frankly, our Department of Education has done a really poor job of helping our teachers get training and resources around it. And so I hear this all over the state about people that don't feel that the young people know Oklahoma history very well. And so that's part of what we need to push too, is when we get the department and we talk about and emphasize the U.S. Constitution, also that folks understand Oklahoma. And by the way, if you understand the Oklahoma Constitution, it really explains, I had to explain to you guys the difference between the Secretary of Education and the State Superintendent. Part of the reason is because we have this massive Constitution that lines out so many things, separates so many positions, that it's frankly, in some cases, very dysfunctional. But that's where the knowledge of how it works and functions is very important. So yes, sir, I think that's something we need to be emphasizing more as well.
Joe, you're up. Should we have a lunch break before you start?
I have a question with about 10 follow-ups. I'll just start with one.
Yes, sir.
At the very beginning, you talked about the low, third, and fourth grade reading levels.
Yep.
Where? Do you have a breakdown, like county by county,
yep,
or whatever of that? Because I'm kind of curious as to where we're seeing that.
Yep. So the numbers I gave you are statewide, and those are the NAEP scores. So that's a national assessment that's given every other year. So that's where I pulled that from, NAEP. We do have scores from around the state. I mean, we have right now and I'm gonna tell you, it looks terrible, but we have a school report card kind of grading system where you can see how every school performs and it compares to the county. So we can look that, we can go all the way through and look that up, but I'm gonna tell you, it's so clunky and that's one of the things we need to do a better job of. Is, to me, the way you empower parents is provide transparency around how the school is doing and make it available. And so we could pull that, but that's a statewide number that I gave you. That wasn't directly related to this area. It was a statewide number.
Okay.
What are you and Stitt and the Republicans doing to put pressure on the TV stations to give you the same amount of time that they gave that bitch Hoffmeister? And I get angry, and it just happened again this week.
I know.
She's at this big rally, everyone's wearing, I thought this was interesting this week, everyone had red shirts.
Red Fred. Yeah.
And red jackets, you know, which indicates they're right wing. They're all, her minions are all screaming, and she's talking against the bill for school choice.
That's right.
When are the Republicans going to get equal time to talk for school choice?
Great question. And I will tell you, I got to do, I did several interviews this week with the media defending our position of that we think parents know best. And guys, the way I see it, every option should be available for our kids. I'm unapologetic about that. If we have a young person right here and there's a better way for them to be educated, I want them to have access to that better way to be educated. So we've got to have all options on the table for our kids. I wish I had a better answer for how to.
I know this. I know that you can't control the TV stations, but Governor Stitt is still the governor.
Yep.
Is he putting pressure on them to get the ability to at least get a different position?
So what I would say to that, and I think it's a great question, I wouldn't say we're putting pressure on the media, but what I would say is what we are trying to do, and we will continue to do, is to use our platforms to speak out on these issues, and they really get to a point where they kind of have to cover it. I mean, I'm going to tell you, there's about to be a 5-part series on education that me and the governor took a part in. And when we first started with these media reporters, they said, hey, well, we can only find people that are against your bill. And I'm going, well, who are you talking to? And they said they went to the rally. I'm like, well, that was a rally against the bill. So, of course, they were all good. It was like, come on now. I go, I can tell you. I go, I talk to parents every day that are for it. You want a list? And she was like, yeah. So I gave her a list. I'm like, come on now. Like, let's dig a little deeper here. But that's the thing that I think is going to be really important, because again, they try to act like any change to the system is bad. And guys, we're 49th in educational outcomes. We're 49th in the country. We have a state superintendent who's been there 7 years, and for some reason we act like none of it's her fault. That's amazing to me. I'm gonna tell you guys, if we're still this ranked this way after I've been there for 4 years, run me out of town, okay? You won't have to run me out of town. I'll be out the door and say somebody else needs to do a better job than me, because our kids are more important than any politician, than any adult. It's about our kids. We're 49th in education. She's been there 7 years, and for some reason, you make a great point, the media covers it like it's somebody else's, like she carries no blame for it.
Well, she brought that up this week.
I know.
And said we were 49th and threw the blame on all the schools.
Yep, absolutely. It's a lack of leadership, and that's where the leader in education, no, you're making, hey, I appreciate it. You're making great points. The leader in education should be unapologetic that we should lead the country in education, and should be putting forward ideas on how to do it. I want to say one other thing. Guys, I got beat up in the media pretty bad about a month ago. I don't know if you saw it or not, but I came out, I heard that all the schools in Oklahoma City were about to close again for 3 weeks. And I talked to a few of the school leaders, and they said, well, we're worried cases might go up. I go, okay. It's unacceptable for your first option to be to close school. So I made a public statement, and I said school leaders don't need to act out of fear. They need to put their kids first, and they need to keep their schools open. And the media just went crazy. I mean, So I started doing all these, and I go, guys, it's about our kids. I'll help all these schools do what we can to stay open. This is why we brought up the substitute teacher plan you might have heard about getting government employees to help cover classes. I went and substitute taught, but I said, guys, look for solutions. Don't just go into these, we just can't do it. What do you mean you can't do it? Every other business in the state is open. I called other states there. We don't have a single school closed. And we were going to have about 30 of them closed. So I went out and I was very public, and I made the public argument. And I said, listen, I got to believe, and I'm hearing from parents every day, they want their schools open. Our schools have been closed too much. We need to seek out solutions, not make excuses. And we've made excuses for far too long. We need leadership in education that says, here are big ideas on how to improve education, and go out there and make the public case and stand by it.
Sorry to get off.
No, that's...
We've got time for one more question.
Over here.
So,
Joe is not shy. He'll nail you to the wall.
Alabama. Yeah.
Go ahead. One last question.
Oh, he gave me a quick one. I already answered it if you want to do it.
Oh.
It was Alabama. He was asking me who 50 was.
Oh, okay.
50's Alabama.
Okay, back here. One more questions.
I have two questions.
Yes, sir.
One is you have not mentioned anything about the support system for the school. Those are extremely important. One is your library, the other is your project that you Governor Dillman organized for the state of Oklahoma. And if you don't go out there or to the library, and I know you don't because I go there all the time and I hear their comments, and they're begging for people to bring their children. They have wonderful children's programs, and if you don't participate, it's your fault. And the other is, I thank you for your comments and for coming.
Thank you. And I'll address your first point. No, you're spot on. I mean, and that's where we have to continue to make sure that our teachers have those resources and those folks around them, because to your point, having the resources available to teach your kids are really important. And again, to your point about the library, that's our Saturday morning routine at our house, is we take the kiddos to the library, again, to introduce them to that. To get reading earlier in schools is very important so that kids are familiar, they're comfortable with it. So I agree with you completely. And our career tech system, I was bragging on the career tech system before I started speaking. Our career tech system does a great job of, and I don't know if you guys know this, but functionally, here's what career tech does. When they offer a program, they take people from that business. So if it's welding, okay, they take people in the welding community who are actually welders. They bring them in and they help develop the curriculum. And every year they check the curriculum to see if it actually matches up with what their job is day to day. Isn't that fantastic? I mean, you know, it's kind of common sense, but guess what? We don't do that so many times in K-12 education. But they are so intentional about ensuring that when you come through our program and you're coming to be I know I keep using welding today, but, you know, electrician, hey, you are going to be up to speed with the latest skills a technician needs to know. I think it's great. I think our career tech systems do a really good job in that. I frankly want to see more collaboration between our career tech systems and our K-12 systems, because I think there's a lot of things going right there. So thank you for that comment.
Do you have contact around?
Absolutely. I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I have a couple that will be real quick answers.
Yeah.
You said something about one size fits all bad. I'm assuming you're okay with having a baseline set, but then like minimum requirements.
Yes, yes.
And then the other one was, you talked about the teachers being able to carry. I'm assuming that you would probably be okay with that as long as the teachers had to undergo a little bit more, like a concealed carry class or something like that.
Yeah. So your first question, yeah, absolutely. What I want is that the basics have to be there. You have to learn how to read. You have to learn to write up to a certain degree. There's basics you have to get down. Once you get those down, I want more flexibility to pursue these other pathways. But yes, sir, to your point, there's got to be the basics have to be taught and need to be mastered. And then to your second question, yes, sir, absolutely. I think you need to make sure to have the right staff carry on site. You need to make sure that they have some training there and kind of what it looks like in a school and when that would be used. But there have been schools that use a model really great about, you know, there's only certain people who know who's actually carrying in the school, and they're, you know, so there's a good way to do that again, other states have done. So
The teacher carry bill that didn't make it last year required an SDA license, also required school board approval.
Yep.
So, and these teachers are not going to go in and shoot people unless they're dangerous people.
Right.
Ryan, thank you.
Thank you very much, too.
Really
Sure
enjoyed
appreciate you.
it. It's very informative. I forgot to mention, Ryan in 2016 was a finalist for Teacher of the Year here in Oklahoma. And Jay, your problem with the media? Do what I did. Get rid of your TV set. I'm serious. It's amazing how much more peace you have in your life not having that idiot box in there pounding on you. Ron mentioned get involved. Folks, the easiest way to do that is find out when your local school board meets and just go and be there. You don't even have to participate. Just be there. I've been to 3 of the last 5 school board meetings in Toccowa. I have an appointment. The school superintendent there contacted me, and I have an appointment with her at 10 a.m. next Wednesday. And in other words, I become a squeaky enough wheel she can't ignore me any longer. And they don't have any system in place where the patrons is how it's defined. And I've read the manual for the school board in Toccowa. And they are required to have a system in place where the patrons, I'm glad it didn't say parents because that would exclude me. I looked up patrons. It's defined as if you give money to an organization, you're their patron. And I give money to the Tonkawa schools. I don't have kids. Tonkawa public schools, they 1/3 of their students are competent at reading at grade level and comprehension, and 1/3 are competent with math at grade level. And according to schoolroom review, there's 1,700 public schools in Oklahoma. Tonkawa rates 1,138. We're in the bottom third. So it may be a pain, and you still need to come to at least one of these meetings a month. But that's the best way to have an effect on your school board. I've been involved now for several months, but things are starting to roll.
Where did you find the statistics that you just?
Okay, just a minute.
I mean, I'd like to go and find them for.
Well, I'll tell you, I will say this. There's a ton of places to do it. The one I went to is Public School Review.
Okay.
And they have graphs. In fact, Tonkawa Public Schools were up here, and in 2016, they plunged. I mean, so I don't know. I'm going to ask about that. As a matter of fact, I'm probably not going to be on the superintendent's Christmas card list. I'm not now anyway, so it's no loss. So that's my advice, folks. If you want to get folks, these school board elections are where our republic starts. And they are, I think just within the last few years, so many people have come to realize, me included, how bloody important these are. I never paid any attention to them before. And here I'm 74, I don't have any kids, don't have any grandkids, and I'm up to my ears in this now. But it's gratifying, and plus, those of you that know me know I enjoy being the squeaky wheel. Folks, I want to thank everyone for coming. If you didn't sign the sign-in sheet, please sign it before you leave. My next meeting is second Tuesday of March. I think it's the 8th at Mary's Grill in Tonkawa. And I've got Jackson Lawmeyer will be making his final appearance before the elections. Thank you for coming. God bless all of you. And stay safe and stay warm. It's supposed to be 70-something degrees by next week. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan.